than a month from launch date, The Lord of the Rings Gollum has already lost most of its Steam's players, making it the worst release of 2023. In the video game world, a game's launch window is usually the best part of its life cycle, so we can foresee an early death. After the success of Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, someone decided that it was a good idea to make a Gollum-focused game, telling a side story referenced in Tolkien's work but never explored too much, and perhaps for a good reason. Could this game be the next Shadow of Mordor and surprise us with a new take on the pathetic creature? Did it? Nope. Today on Fantasy Archive, we analyze the contender for the worst game of 2023 with The Lord of the Rings: Gollum, a product that should have been kept in the best possible place, the brainstorming room. Have you played many platformers? We all love the Prince of Persia series, Assassin's Creed, and subsequent products like that. Now, take that similar concept, snap Gollum in there, and create an awful story, gameplay, and graphics that have been created after an endless hangover. A combination of PS3 graphics with the depth and textures of that Fellowship of the Ring game back in 2001. Exactly. That's Lord of the Rings: Gollum, one of the worst excuses for a game we've seen in a very long time. The controls are alright, but the interaction with the environment leave a lot to be desired. Poor textures, optimization far from the last generation of games, visual repetition, and mediocre design. In short, a mediocre product with one of the worst launches since Cyberpunk 2077, which is never a good comparison. Lord of the Rings Gollum puts us under the skin of Smeagol himself before he is spotted by the Fellowship in the mines of Moria. In the time period starting when Gandalf gives Bilbo's ring to Frodo up until when Gollum says to Sauron the words, "Shire and Baggings." The game is depressing in the worst possible way. Back when it was announced, the concept didn't make much sense. A platformer with Gollum as a central character in a dungeon crawler but no lore to follow? You'd be attempting to match each player's imagination. And here lies the root cause of this failure. Is this a story that needed to be told? Why not take that same time period but give us a game where we play Aragorn in the hunt for Gollum and we travel throughout Middle-earth, discovering clues and making it a combination of adventure and challenge like Jedi Fallen Order? In the books, there's no explicit description of the specific methods Sauron used to extract information from Gollum. However, it can be inferred that Sauron's minions, who are skilled in extracting information and employing various forms of coercion, would have employed different tactics to interrogate Gollum. Given Gollum's vulnerability and his obsession with the ring, it is possible that Sauron's forces exploited Gollum's fear and desire for the ring to manipulate him. They may have used threats, promises, or psychological manipulation to coerce Gollum into revealing what he knows about the ring's location or whereabouts. That is the only information that we get from the books, so that event in itself is very obscure and lacks a lot of context in a long run. So we can say that it is a free canvas for anyone trying to adapt a story set on Middle-earth, and they can experiment and try new things, but more for a film than a video game. Having Gollum doing chores and stupid activities is not what we would call interesting storytelling. Overall, Gollum is a mentally ill character displaying multiple personalities, a syndrome that doctors to this day struggle to understand or even accept. How will we get there through a video game? Perhaps a risk too high to take. Following through this idea made Rings of Power look like a faithful attempt to an adaptation of Tolkien's works. The first mission of the game consists on doing meaningless chores like finding orc tags, trying to end his food, and going to sleep at the end of the day. Like this was an attempt to emulate the masterful Persona series by Atlas. That being said, this isn't the worst fallacy. One of the main missions of the game is actually Gollum incubating and raising a bird. You know, the same birds he eats raw throughout his life. We imagine the conversation in the developer's meeting room going like this. Well, we need a companion for Gollum. Do you mean an orc? No, that would make no sense. What about a bird? What a great idea! A pet! Let's do it! If you are adapting a universe like this, have at least the decency of understanding its lore first. Gollum eats birds on the regular. Having him raise one like a pet is an insult to all of the fans' intelligence. Obviously, the backlash has been legendary, and the game, which has the audacity to ask full price for the regular edition and $70 for the collector's edition, which is worthless, contradicts directly the good faith of the developers to give us a unique game that was an homage to Tolkien. Let's speculate on how this game could have actually been good. First, don't do a platformer. With games like Hollow Knight and Ori, that setting is already mastered. Why not try an RPG with innovative ideas? Why not create a game that lets you control Gollum throughout the Lord of the Rings story but see everything from Gollum's point of view? From the escape of the woodland realm to following the Fellowship to Moria, then Lothlorien, swimming through the Andir to Ememil and finding Frodo and Sam? At least that way you have adventure. Later, we can explore dialogue options based on the books to find extra information for us to listen, read, and discover, exploring Gollum's past, the fall of his persona, and even having a flashback with Bilbo. You then can create a new level of empathy with the character of Gollum, making us, the player, live everything emotionally on Smeagol's side, further understanding why in the end he betrays the hobbits to end up in the sea of lava of Mount Doom. And if you want to create new events in the story, you'll be able to do so in some obscure timeline where we could explore Gollum's psychology and fall into madness, which at the same time could create an in-depth study of this universal character, never done before. But then again, even if we improve it, was Gollum's point of view the best game idea worth the trouble? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. A true shame, Lord of the Rings Gollum. A game that doesn't make sense and tries to be a profound mediocrity with the storytelling capacities of a toddler with delusions of greatness.